Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, bringing you the most insightful content, opinion on college football, discussion, debate, and analysis you're going to find. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Well, this past week, Alabama was voted number one in the AP poll for the 106th time all-time, going back to the origin of the poll in 1936. That passed Ohio State for the most times voted number one. Well, what does that mean? Well, I believe it means that these two programs and others right behind them have been powers for most of this time. They have been dominant programs that obviously, if you're voted number one, especially late in the season, that means that you're having a great season. If you're voted number one preseason or within the first month of the season, you may turn out to have an excellent season. Sometimes you don't. So it has varying degrees of relevance. Overall, it doesn't mean anything. It's just an anecdote. But it got me to thinking again about the age-old argument. Greatest program in the history of college football. Greatest program in the history of college football. And what are those collection of programs? What are the top 10 or the top 25 that we could rank? And what should the criteria be? All right, if we were looking at another sport that was more objective in its selection of a champion, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL, the first criteria should be world championships. That, I believe, should be the biggest criteria because that's what everyone strives for. That's the ultimate goal. That is the reason they're playing. All right, we have national championships in college football, but we all know how convoluted that has been through the years to varying degrees. Even right now, the selection process determines who gets into the playoff. So we have the truest form of a playoff right now and have since 2014, but it's still just a selection process. Going back before that, we again had a selection of two teams based on a mathematical formula, but mostly two-thirds vote by people who are flawed and biased, selecting two teams from 1998 through 2013 to play in the national championship game. Before that, it was totally up for grabs. Who's claiming national championships? That's why we have roughly 130 years of college football being played, and we have like 500 national champions. Because everybody runs out and claims their national championship. We had seasons back in the 19-teens and 20s where teams played 6 and 7 games. And obviously there was not much cross rivalries, cross play to determine much. So you would have 5 teams claiming national championships, and rightfully so for them. They went undefeated, let's say. And then, of course, we've got a number of bogus claimed national championships throughout the years that are completely unfounded based on losing multiple games or losing the bowl game. All right, so national championships should obviously be built into the criteria, but how much? All right, we even have the case of Central Florida in 2017. They play FBS football. They went undefeated. They did not win a national championship. Tons of disputed national championships. All right, conference championships. That I can deal with a little bit more tangibly. We know if you won a conference championship that you were most likely the best team in the conference. You had to tangibly win more games than anybody else or win a division to get to a championship game within the conference and then win that game. So conference championships, pretty concrete. We can deal with that. Obviously, prior to the conference championship games, we had tons of shared championships, which would have to be split. We also have to deal with the factor of there have been teams, certainly in the best leagues in America, second, third, fourth place, that are better than teams that have won conference championships, but we can't delve into that. We know that in the BCS era, for example, the Big East was given a place at the table as one of the top conferences, but it wasn't anywhere close to the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12 at the time. But should their conference championship be weighted just as heavily? All right, now let's get to winning percentage. This measures, of course, playing the games and just winning the games. There is absolutely no bias involved here. Who has the best winning percentage? Well, we've gone from whole numbers, actual championships, nationally and in conference, to percentages. So what do we do with these percentages? Basically, what we need to do is then rank each category because the percentages don't work into a formula with whole numbers. Team A has 10 national championships and 32 conference championships, and their winning percentage is 74.3. Team B has 8 national championships, 35 conference championships, and their winning percentage is 75.7. Okay, what do you do with that? Well, we're going to have to rank each category, it appears. Then we have the poll ranking. So we have a team winning a national championship at the end of the year, Alabama, 2017. We have a second team that in today's game, in the current structure, lost a national championship, Georgia. Well, they should be rewarded for that. They finished number 2 in the country. They lost the national championship game, especially in the fashion that Georgia did, playing as close as you possibly could. There should be an award for that. Also, let's consider that Alabama could have lost the national championship game, and they would not have factored into any criteria here. They would not have won a national championship, would not have even won a conference championship. All right, so we're going to have to go to a certain degree with the polls. Which poll do we go with? The coaches poll, the AP poll. And you know from watching my videos that I am a harsh critic of the poll system. It's awful. All right, but the final poll is pretty accurate. Let's also consider the flaw in the poll. Why is number 26, the number 26 team in the country, is completely off the map? We don't make a distinction between number 24 and 25. We still see team number 25. We don't have a poll that ranks all 130 FBS teams. We have a poll that ranks 25. So there should be no distinction given to 26 versus 25, but there is. 26 is completely absent, gone. We don't know who they are. But there's little distinction between 24 and 25. Most people would look at it and say, 24 and 25, it's about the same spot. These two teams are comparable, but not 25 and 26. 26, we don't even see a name. So that's a flawed system as well. And obviously, just the rankings within the top 25 are flawed. Keep in mind that you have a mix of Power 5 teams and Group of 5 teams. So you typically have Group of 5 teams that have only lost 0, 1, or 2 games ranked at the end of the season, with teams that have lost 3 and 4 and 5 games at times. Stanford last season lost 5 games and was still ranked 20th in the final AP poll. Let's realize that there were 20 other FBS schools that lost 5 or less games and were not ranked in the final poll. And of course, many of them came from Conference USA and the other Group of 5 conferences. But 6 of them were from the Power 5. 6 teams had at least as good a record as Stanford, either the same number of losses or less, from the Power 5, and were not ranked in the final top 25. So it's a flawed system. Teams in the ACC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, even the same conference, not as many losses or the same number of losses, 5, as Stanford, and were not ranked in the AP poll. So that's a flawed system as well. All right, then we get into a number of categories that give indication to how great a program or team is, but it really has nothing to do with winning. All-Americans, Heisman Trophy winners. We also have NFL draft selections. And then once we get into NFL draft selections, shouldn't it matter if you had the number 1 overall selection in the NFL draft versus somebody else who had one selection, but theirs was 114th. So we would almost have to weight the NFL draft selections if we go in that direction. But that is obviously a scouting process that has nothing to do with winning on the field. But do the best programs produce the most NFL draft picks? Absolutely they do. Also, how about their success once they reach the league? Tom Brady, maybe the greatest NFL quarterback of all time, 6th-round pick, wouldn't weight heavily and favor Michigan much in this process if we just looked at the draft selection, number 199, versus other players and quarterbacks who were selected highly but did not play well in the NFL. And then finally, College Football Hall of Famers. Do we weight that as well? That's a selection process, but it gives indication to those programs that have produced great players, and typically great players play on great teams. So our criteria in some fashion will be national championships, conference championships, winning percentage, poll standing at the end of the season, the AP, the coaches poll, whatever. And then the prestige rankings. Do we include those? The Heisman, All-Americans, the NFL draft selection, NFL success, College Football Hall of Famers. Any categories that I've missed, please leave those in the comments section. Let me know how you would structure a system to determine the greatest program in the history of college football, and then, of course, rank the rest of them. I am not going to take on this project during the season. You guys know how busy I am in analyzing the play on the field, but I will gear up for an off-season project in ranking the all-time greatest programs in college football. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please join me right here. Like, comment, and subscribe. We bring the best analysis with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, including, of course, analysis from myself with help from you. Leave your comments, and we will get it done right here at Mark Rogers TV.